Good morning, everyone. Remembering me, this is Phil Leach from Delmarva, you, me, we. I'm up here in lovely Lancaster County, Pennsylvania with a dear friend. And I wanted to share his story with everyone. I was recently excited to go on a photo shoot with Dave. And during the photo shoot, our discussions led in many directions, but his family story, specifically his beloved mother and his parents, was very touching. So I don't want to steal any of Dave's thunder, but I do want to give you some background before I ask Dave to fill us in on his story. Dave is a Temple University graduate in university film. I should say a university film school graduate, a notable documentarian and author. He runs his own production company, DZP Video Multimedia Incorporated. His experiences include 6ABC in Philadelphia, commercial work with Leroy Associates National Theater Productions, and his own award-winning documentary work. So with that, I want to ask Dave to share not just his experience in film, but also his family story, which to me was very intriguing and touching. So Dave, good morning.
Okay.
Welcome.
Good morning, Bill.
Thank you.
Nice to see you.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming out. I've got a lovely day today, really nice weather.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, my mother's story, she was a Holocaust survivor. She was in Auschwitz.
Right.
And she's from Romania. And her town in Sighet, the Jews were taken to Auschwitz. And she survived it. And as kids growing up, we learned about her story. At the dinner table, she would talk about it. And she wouldn't tell the whole story like in one long thread from beginning to end. She would always be little bits and parts. I lost 64 members of my family, cousins and uncles and aunts, and
all during the war.
She wouldn't say who they were.
Yeah.
Just I lost them, and we knew it. My own experience from that was, well, World War II started in 41 and ended in 45, and you spent 4 years in concentrate. No, they weren't taken to Auschwitz until the end of 1943, the beginning of 44 is when they went
Right.
to Auschwitz from Sighet, Romania is where she was from.
Right.
So
Because Auschwitz is Poland, correct?
In Poland, yeah. So, but she wasn't in Auschwitz for like maybe 4 to 5 months, and then she went to a work camp. And she was in a work camp, and she worked in a munitions factory. So the fact that she was chosen for slave labor is why she survived Auschwitz, and her sister was too.
Wow. Yeah.
And her other sister didn't survive. She was in the camp with her, and she talks about that in her book, in her story. Well, getting ahead of here. And after my mother passed away she died in 94. A few years later, my brother, who was also a film school graduate he went to Fresno State in California. He decided to write a play about our mother's story.
Mm.
And he had written a play. And
shortly after her death?
Probably four years or so, 5 years afterwards. Yeah. Our aunt, my mother's sister, younger sister, was still alive, and she lived in Canada. And my brother sent her the screenplay, the play that he had written. And she read it, and she wrote back to him and said, or talked to him on the phone and called him. It's a very nice story, but it's not really correct. You should read your mother's letter, is what she told Oscar. What letter? And she said, yeah, we have a letter that your mother wrote, and she sent it to Oscar, and it turned out to be 60-page letter that she had written when she was liberated in 1945. And the letter went to an uncle that lived in Cleveland. And what happened was that she was, after the war, she worked in a canteen for the Red Cross. And American GIs came into this canteen and the coffee and donuts and stuff like that, they served them. And she would ask the different soldiers who were going back to the United States, please contact my uncle, he lives in Cleveland, this is his name. And somebody did contact him, and he wrote back to her, please tell us what happened to the family.
Right.
So she wrote this long letter, and the letter is, if you can imagine a college blue book for writing exams, which is about yay big, this book was brown, but it was exactly like that. And she wrote from the front of the book, like page, turned it, wrote the next page, turned it, next page. And when she got to the end, she turned the book over and wrote from the back of the book to the front, which is kind of weird. But it was turns out to be 60 total pages.
Something meaningful for her, most likely.
And it was written in Hungarian, and so my brother had it translated, and the translation became a book.
Yeah, this is a book, by the way, that I have recently read, and it's beloved, it's happy thoughts, but it's built on a sad moment in our world history. Certainly I cried a good bit, and I think Dave warned me that I would, and I did. So for those of you that haven't yet spent any time considering the Holocaust, I invite you to do so. So continue, Dave. Tell us a bit more.
So I got the letter and I read it, and I got to a couple of parts and I cried, and I'm crying right now a little bit. It's emotional.
Understandably, yes.
She talks about her when her sister died, which was pretty terrible. And she said that basically she's in this munitions factory, and they had some kind of barracks where they lived. And there's a bathroom there, and her sister was laying on the floor there for days before they came and got her body.
My goodness.
You know, stuff like that.
Yeah, my goodness. It's so hard to imagine for
she said, I had to see her like that when I went to the bathroom, you know, which is kind of terrible. And the really sad part, I thought, for me and my brother, because we're twins, my brother and I are twins. She befriended a German when she was in Auschwitz. He was on the other side of the barbed wire. She had two little children with her, and they were twins, and they were pretty twins, little boys, blonde hair. And she talked to the lady, because my mother spoke German, you know, and these were twins that were in Mengeles camp, which was right by Auschwitz.
Yeah.
And one day the woman was sitting there by herself, and my mother asked the lady, the mother on the other side of the fence, where are your children? And her response was, they flew to heaven. And Auschwitz, or Mengele had, you know, killed them. Experimented on them to the point where they died. And so the mother didn't have her children anymore. So of course, when my mother had us, she had twins. So it's kind of ironic, I guess.
Yeah.
Or anyway, so.